Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
In a world where Big Pharma writes the script, it's time to believe. Biohack. Become.
We're here to explore the truth about healing that exists outside the broken medical system, to give you the knowledge, the community, and the strategies you need to become the hero of your own health story.
Your guide is a biohacking entrepreneur, a near-death survivor, and a cancer warrior navigating his own healing journey. Founder of Biohackingville, Exodus Strong, and QE Strong. Your host, Rob Renee. This is Biohackingville, where the medical system has failed us. One man is leading the rebellion to reclaim.
Hey, here we are. Welcome back to another fun episode of Biohackingville. Today is a really interesting conversation. And we're going to dig into frequencies. And I think one of the reasons why I believe you don't know a lot about frequencies, I think it's going to be a very, very enlightening discussion. It's something that I didn't understand at all a number of years ago. And I thought it was all, pseudoscience / woo-woo. But boy, have I been educated. And so I'm very excited to share what I have learned over the last 4 or 5 years and be able to share that with you, because I think it's really, really important for you to understand, how the human body works and how it interacts with external environments. I think it's super, super powerful. And I think it's really important for us as human beings to understand, how incredible this temple is that God did give us. It's super exciting. Next week, I've got a guest that I'm super excited to share with you. So look forward to next week. At an amazing holistic health practitioner who's literally healing people every day. And so we'll be able to talk real strategies about what he's doing. But today is literally a discussion about frequencies. And I titled this discussion called Stanford proved frequencies in the 1970s, but why have you never heard about it? And I think it's really important. The reason why I titled it that was unfortunately there's a lot of things that big pharma and or medical cartel, whatever you want to call it, just doesn't want us to know. So I thought it's important for us to kind of walk through what I think related to it, but then more importantly, just what are frequencies? Because I had no clue what frequencies were. I thought it was a really strange term. I just didn't understand it. So I just thought it was strange. And then when I was introduced to some of the topics, I thought they were absolutely insane. I'm just like, come on, give me a break. I literally thought that. But then the more research I did, it's just fascinating what you learn. And so let's dig in. I want to jump into a couple of slides I think are really impactful. So this is the Stanford proved frequencies were heal. Not only just were they real, but they heal back in the 1970s, right? But why have you never heard about that? Right. And this is one of the reasons why I believe, and this is Rob Renee's personal opinion, is that, people have found major transformation. So here's an example of one that I have personal relationships with. This woman had literally decades of pain. And she, within an hour, she was transformed. And so I never thought that would be possible. But then to be in part of someone's transformation, where they all they literally did was receive a small component from us, and she came back an hour later and was blown away of how something that had been plaguing her for a decade was better. And so it was just really, really incredible. And then I'll never forget the next day when she came and found me again and was telling me about how she slept, right? For the first time in years, she was able to sleep through the night because she was able to sleep without the discomfort that she'd had. So I think that's really, really important and impactful. It's one of the reasons why I believe that these things are just not mainstream, because they literally can have a transformative effect on people. And unfortunately, there's other, the medical institutions today. I think, I love, I always want to preface my conversations about big pharma and or the medical system. I love the nurses and doctors and people that are part of our healthcare system. It's not their fault of the things that are happening in our world, but it's really our system is set up with a control of money, and where they're not motivated to help heal people. And so that's why I find it I'm very passionate about interviewing people who are actually working to help heal people from a holistic perspective. And then there's so many things, modalities and things that we can do to heal ourselves. We need to just take control of our own health care. And so that's the next slide, I think, is super important, because this is the stuff I started understanding. Right. If you look at what Nikola Tesla said, right, his the secrets of the universe. You've probably heard this before. He said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And so he's obviously a very controversial figure. But when you do research about what he was doing, it's literally incredible. And then you can go down some rabbit holes about what happened to not only him, but all of his research. And it's really tragic. So I'll let you do your own research related to that. But I do want to bring up that, energy and frequencies and vibrations, they're all interacting with this incredible temple that God did create, right, and made us. And so when you understand how those things work, then you can start to understand how frequencies can have literally a significant impact on the human body. So that's why this calling this, literally the frequency of healing. Because, right, obviously the thing that we want to do is we want to figure out ways to heal. And I'm never going to say that I can heal anybody or anything, right? It's, in my opinion, it's God that does the healing. And so you make sure to preface all of these conversations with, I'm not saying anything is going to heal you, but I do want to just explain the research and things that I am finding. But if you are skeptical now, good. You literally should be, right? Because what I'm going to show you it's been mocked, dismissed, and called woo-woo pseudoscience for a very, very long time. And I literally thought it was that way as well. So I know where you sit or where you could sit. But it's really fun when you dig into this. When Stanford, literally scientists at Stanford in the 70s proved it works. And then IBM researchers literally documented it, and that was fascinating too. And then I'm a man of faith, so I believe that God created this and told us, talked about it in the Bible literally thousands of years ago. And so it's my mission, right, to help you understand how God and science merge to give you an unfair advantage over disease and pain. That's what I really want to try to do to help people, is help understand this amazing temple he gave us, help understand these natural remedies and solutions. I'm going through major health issues and struggles, and so I'm learning all these modalities, and I'm learning what's good and what's bad and why. And I'm even looking at medical tourism of how to go overseas to get different remedies and different help, because unfortunately in the United States, even though we are the most, some argue we have the most advanced medical system in the world, right? It doesn't show in the results. If you look at how poor our healthcare system is, we're one of the lowest as far as the actual results of our healthcare system. So it's pretty tragic when you dig into the details. But we have people in power that I believe are starting to try to make a difference, and that's why my life work is going to be is just trying to help people go through this. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about this Stanford research that they buried. This is really fascinating when you look into this gentleman named Dr. William Tiller. He was a professor in the Department of Materials and Science. And what he had done is he figured out ways to look at what these intentions were. And then he would able to isolate that in a lab and then get specific results based upon these intentions. And you're like, that sounds really strange. How does that work? And I've got some scientific reports that you can dig in and understand more of the details of what he did, which I think is really cool. But then the next thing about it is not only, the intentions and frequencies, but then how do you deliver those to somebody, right? You can maybe be tied to a physical machine. And in fact, let's jump out of this slide real quick. I want to show you some of these things that I have in my office. These are literally frequency devices that literally go from this device to this device. It goes it's a physical thing, and you can literally put it on your body. You can put it on your arms, and it's literally providing a frequency through it. We have at the organization that I founded, we have these little patches, and these patches are really fascinating in respect that we put frequencies in these little crystalline structures that I'm going to explain here in a minute. And this is why I delved into this for real quick, was to show it to you, is these crystals that I'm going to talk about and how they program them. We have these little patches, and these little patches, they're about as big as the size of a nickel. And you take it, the patch, and you just apply it to your body. I always put it in the back of my neck just because it's out of the way and under my collar. But the interesting thing about that is that patch has a little crystalline structure on top of it. And what does that mean? Let me go back to those slides real quick. When I show you the slide, let's see. All right, so now the fun thing, if you look at this little, this is an example of a crystal, right? Obviously, this is a big crystal, but they can have these little miniature ones. It's called a microscopic crystalline structure, and these little microscopic crystals can hold information. And that's the point I want you to understand: is you can program these structures with content, similar to how your computer or your cell phone holds information. These little crystalline structures can hold information as well. So I think it's really, really important to understand, because that's the concept I didn't understand early on. And I thought it was really strange. It didn't make any sense to me. But then when you see IBM scientists prove that you can literally program these structures with frequencies, with intentions, and you're like, how does that work? And we'll go into a little bit more detail, but I want you to understand that you can program these crystalline structures with information. So then you're like, oh, okay, interesting. So the Stanford scientists proved that intentions can be programmed, and then the IBM scientists proved that you can literally program these little crystalline structures with information. So then you're like, okay, all right. Now I'm starting to, at least I understand that piece of it, which I think was really important. At the bottom, Stanford knew, IBM knew. Why was this knowledge never taught? So let's talk about. Actually, you know what? I'm going to not talk about Dr. Emoto yet. I want to jump back into a conversation about the human body. and then we'll jump into Dr. Emoto. So as I was doing research on these things, frequencies really sounded strange to me. I didn't understand it, but yet, like I mentioned earlier, there's so many things that are made up of frequencies, and we'll talk through some of these. But you look at light, right? Light is a frequency. Color is a frequency. Sound is a frequency. I think most people know that a radio, in the past, you'd actually have a dial on the radio, and on that dial you would change the station, but the station literally is just changing the frequency. So then it's getting information on that particular station via a different frequency. So once you understand that frequencies aren't weird, they're all around us, and they've been around for ever. It's God created all of these. That's another thing that I really like to discuss. Is I believe that there's a devil, and I believe there's a God, and I believe that the devil's taken a lot of things that God meant for good and have modified them. And so there's a lot of people that believe in woo-woo, science and or New Age science and stuff that I personally don't believe. You could believe it if you want. That's totally fine. I'm not judging you at all. I just want to, from my positioning, I come at things from a biblical perspective. And so I look at it that way, that God made this body so incredibly complex and powerful that we're still trying to figure out how it all works, right? You start looking at the frequency of the body, and you'll end up researching that we have an actual energy field around the body. Some people call it an aura or chi or what. There's lots of Eastern medicine has different terms for it, but it is a proven fact that you can. There's been research related to this energy field that the human body has, and so I started doing research on the human body. I'm like, how does that work? I don't understand. But you look at the way that God made this body. It is made up of energy, and we're about 70% water. So we'll talk about Dr. Emoto here in a minute and his experiments, because water is really important when we talk about the human body. So even, and then we're starting to learn about frequencies, right? Frequencies are no longer a weird term. I want you to make sure you feel comfortable that it's not a weird term. But then the fun thing about the human body is even down to our specific cells, all the way down, these microscopic cells within our body, they interact with each other via vibration. So the cool thing about that is when the vibrations, they give off, AKA a frequency. So when you understand that our human body, even down to the cells, it interacts with itself via vibration, and vibrations, it can interact both positively and negatively to frequencies, then you start the bridge to the next topic about these frequencies can interact with the body become not so strange. Then it becomes, okay, now it's not as woo-woo as I thought it was. It's not as pseudoscience as I thought it was. It's could be potentially real, right? And so if it can potentially work, then okay, interesting. I checked these boxes. I researched frequencies. I researched the human body, and I'm understanding these things much better now. And then you start looking at, like I mentioned, the Stanford things where intentions can be programmed. And then you look at the IBM science on how you can actually program these crystal structures with frequencies and with intentions and other information. And then you're like, okay, well, then how do you apply it to the human body? So that's what I was talking about, like these frequency devices, right? It's literally tied to a machine, and the machine has frequencies, and that actually is pushing out a frequency into another thing, right? So this is a much larger physical device. And then I showed you those little skin patches, right? Little microscopic crystals that are connecting to the human body. But the important thing is, if you're getting it within the human body's energy field, you're getting it within that environment, then your body starts interacting with it. then it starts getting fun. You're like, well, how does that work? And how do you know that? Is that true? Those are all really, really good questions. I showed this just real quick, this little device last week. It's called the Muse 2. And there's lots of different ones. This is probably maybe a year, maybe even 2 years old. But the cool thing about this is you just put this little device on your brain, or you're on your head, and it's got sensors on it, and it literally measures the brain waves within your body. And so I think many of you have seen the EEG monitors, where it's monitoring your different brain waves. And there's lots of science on brain waves. There's lots of science on this stuff is not new, but and it's very well documented. But the cool thing about this particular device is you literally can look at it on your cell phone, and you can see how these frequencies, how your brain waves are interacting to the environment around it. And so what was really fascinating for me when I was getting introduced to these technologies, in fact, it was related to these patches, right? Let's go back to the very beginning, right? The woman who came to me and met with me, and I gave her, guess what? One of those patches I mentioned, and I gave her that patch, and she came back an hour later, and literally she had not been able to move her arm for almost up. She couldn't even wear a purse on her shoulder because the strap would always fall off, because she could never lift her shoulder and keep the strap on. And she came to me and she showed me, she lifted her elbow up, and I didn't really understand what that meant, but to her it was hugely significant. She couldn't believe it, and it's something she had not been able to do for literally years. And so for her to have that freedom of movement, she was just blown away. And it was like, wow. And so the fun thing is we've been able to replicate with this EEG monitor on the brain is when we introduce, we did a study when people came into the clinic and they were in pain. We were doing an actual study on pain, and they came into the clinic, and they would rank their level of pain. And then what we would do is we'd put the EEG monitor on them, and then we would introduce a solution to them, aka a patch and or a card. You can also make these, you can put those crystalline structures on a number of different devices and different things. So you can apply it to the body in a number of different ways. So we apply the solution to the individual, and then you can see the interaction of their brain waves via this monitor. And that's where it gets fascinating, because literally some people within 5 seconds, you can see a change really, really quickly. It's like, wow, okay, you can tell their body recognized that new introduction of something. And then what you end up seeing over time, the brain waves, they initially are going like this, because when your body is in pain, it's a signal, right? Your brain and your body's going, hello, 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 hello. There's a problem here. There's a problem here, and it's your body's natural reaction to a problem, and so that's why it hurts, right? And your brain recognizes it, your body recognizes it, and your brain waves are active because of that. And the cool thing, when this device is connected and you see the change in the brain waves, all of a sudden it starts smoothing out. And then you re-interview the people that related to this that were in the study, and they were reporting back to us that their symptoms, aka their issues, were better, and they were resolving, and they didn't understand why or how. And so it's just fascinating. So I wanted to kind of just relay that back to that woman that I'd met, because we've seen so many, we've literally seen hundreds and hundreds of people that it's impacted and helped through this process. And it's literally with these these frequencies that are doing it and doing the work. And there's so many different frequency devices that it's hard to understand, because again, like the red light therapy discussion last week, you have these really inexpensive devices like our patches are, less than $100. Then you get these big devices like the one that I'm showing you. It's a multiple $1,000 device, and you can get these frequency beds that are, some people call them the med beds or whatever, if you want to call them that. They do have these frequency beds that are literally $15,000, $20,000, $70,000 to have these frequency beds that people use and clinics have. And so it's really fun to investigate the spectrum of how these frequency devices are working and how they're helping people. So let's go now back to the Dr. Emoto discussion, because this is one of the things that really clicked with me when I started researching Dr. Emoto. In fact, I've got his book right here. This book is incredible. It's called The Hidden Messages in Water. And this book is fascinating. You'll go through and look at the actual pictures that he documented as part of his research. And you'll see the differences between before and after. As he would freeze the water. He would do it before, and then he would do something like either an intention or a prayer or a number of other things that you can read in the book, and it explains like this. One of these is a thank you. And it shows you the before and after of what the crystal, the actual format of the water was before and then after. And he documents it. And so I thought it's really, really interesting book and really good information to understand. And then the second one, I'm going to actually go to the slide on this one, because I do like to show this. I'm going to present here real quick again. So this is the water one. So the water, the crystals, like I just showed you in the book, the input on this one was, love and gratitude. And look at how beautiful that crystalline structure is on that particular crystal. But then, the other input is a hate and disgust, and literally it's all messy. So that same water was done with both love and gratitude, and then hate and disgust. And the results were dramatic, the differences between the two. And I thought that just is fascinating. The book is awesome. You can look at the details related to it. But this is the one that I love the most. And that's one I always talk about because it was so impactful and it's so visual that when you see it, it starts to make a lot of sense. But then the thing I liked the most was lots of other people, like hundreds of other people have duplicated the experiment. So it wasn't just Dr. Emoto and his science and his area, because as we all know, science can be done in a controlled environment, and people can get the results that they want to get, right? But if you have lots of people that replicate the same thing, then that becomes much more verifiable or in my opinion, real. And so this has been a fun one for me. But anyways, let's talk about those 3 jars of rice, right? He had 3 different jars of rice, all had the same amount of rice in it, all had the same amount of water. And then he literally spoke 3 different things to these jars of rice over a 30-day period. And so for 30 days, he'd do the same thing. One of them he would love, right? Spoken to the words with love. And he did that and love and thanks daily. Then one he hated, right? So he literally spoke words of hatred and insult literally to that particular jar. And then the third one, he would totally ignore it. And then as you can see in this graph here, the bottom one, that's the one that he loved, it was fermented and actually has sweet smell, which I thought was strange as well. But then the one that he hated, it was rotted and gross and moldy. And then one he ignored was almost as bad or looked worse than the one that he than he hated. So it's just fascinating how many people have done this experiment. And what it does show you is that's why I also wanted to talk about the human body, right? The human body is made up of 70% water. So the Dr. Emoto's experiments related to how intentions and prayer have a physical impact on the water, that's important because guess what? Our bodies are made up of water. So our bodies interact with these external environments, both positive and negative. So that's really, really important to understand, right? If you're around a really negative environment a lot, you're going to get a lot of negative input, right? You're around a positive environment and positive things, you're going to have positive frequencies related to the body. That's why the power of the mind is so important, and what you think and what your intentions are very, very important to your results and to your outcome. So it's not just mental. It's really it can become physical as well, which I thought was really, really important. But this is where it also becomes that crystalline structure. So water and crystals are combined in this sense, in the respect that since your body literally acts as a receiver. So I told you how those little crystalline structures can be programmed with information. And then like on our patches, you apply it to the body and it starts doing some work. Well, guess what, right? Your body, it's taking in that information, and it can be programmed with good and or bad information. So we want to do the right thing to the human body. We want to give it the right things. We want to give it the right setup, and we want to give it the right frequencies to help with the specific issues. So this is really important to kind of walk through this logically to where, okay, frequencies are not weird. I'm going to just jump out of the presentation again. So frequencies are not weird. And then you understand that the human body is made up of energy, and it interacts with external things. And then you understand the body is made up of water, and you understand that these crystalline structures can be programmed with information, and your body reacts and interacts with that. Then the next logical step of, can you use these things to help, right? Can you use these things to make a difference in the human body? And that's where it gets super fun, right? Because that's where you start seeing the results of things like the woman that I mentioned earlier. Another one that is just super, super impactful for me was the story of a woman we met who was a couple of weeks away from going to hospice. So she had been struggling for a really long time, and she lived by herself. She had a wonderful little dog, and but she was struggling. And she was just about to go into, she'd finally resolved in her mind that she was going to go into assisted care. But we were introduced to this woman, and we talked to her, and we gave her some of our products. So she was introduced to our products, and she started using these frequencies, and unbelievable. But over a short period of time, she went from being totally disabled, not being able to walk her dog, not being able to vacuum her own apartment, her own place, not being able to go walk to talk to the neighbors or just get outside of her apartment. She went from that to a woman who cleaned her own apartment, vacuumed her own house, took her own dog for a walk, and went and visited her neighbors, and was able to have the life that she was accustomed to up until that point. And so to see the transformation in somebody that was just at that point where it's just like they'd almost given up, all right, to where all of a sudden now something else helped them in a dramatic way. And she tried literally, anything and everything to help her. and things just weren't working. So to see a transition like that is just so impactful, and that's why I love what I do, is I want to help people, right? On that's why I created Biohackingville, is I wanted to create this environment to where we can talk about things that maybe mainstream the medical system's not talking about. But hey, there's lots of fun things like red light therapy and cold plunges, and there's frequency devices, there's nutritional information, right? There's physical diets that you can do, right? There's so many areas and facets of this human body and how to improve it. That's I'm just super excited about, right? So I'm creating this repository of data that I want to just give people access to, and I want us to interact, and I want you to share as much information as you have. And collectively, we're going to have this amazing repository of information for people. And so, when people get diagnosed with a serious health issue and or concern, I'm not saying we're going to be the end all do all, but hey, we're going to be a resource. That there's going to be a place where someone can say, hey, I remember hearing about something within Biohackingville related to, let's just say, the big C word, right? So cancer has been a big problem in our society, and there's lots and lots of diagnoses going through the roof. And I'm going to have, as part of Biohackingville, I'm going to have an integrative oncology section within it, because I have, all of us have been affected by cancer in some way or another, right? A family member, a relative, et cetera. It literally just had not my family member, but a close friend and family associate just passed away just a week and a half ago. And so he was going through an issue and a diagnosis, and he went through the path in a different route than others. And I want to be able to just be a sounding board for people and give resources to people that says, hey, guess what? You get diagnosed with X, there's information for you to start looking at that. And what are your alternatives, right? When I was first diagnosed, with melanoma. So I'm actually stage 3 melanoma diagnosed person, as I'm not claiming I have it, but I'm going to say that I was diagnosed. And so as I was digging into this issue, it was really daunting and very, very frustrating, because there's so much misinformation out there, and so much and everybody you talk to, since that word is so pervasive throughout our society, that everybody has a remedy. And I don't mean that in a mean way, but it is very, very frustrating, because you'll talk to somebody and they'll say, oh, hey, haven't you heard about XYZ? And the problem is XYZ may have nothing to do with your specific issue and or your specific problem, but people hear the C word and they just lump it all together. But as you do research on this issue, it actually is very, very complicated issue, as you can imagine. And then people who have dug into this start to understand it much more in detail as well. That there are literally hundreds of types of the C word. And since there are hundreds of types of that, then guess what? The reason why one person has a diagnosis, the diagnosis may be the exact same, right? It may be termed the exact same, but the reason why I contracted the issue and the reason the person right next to me was contracted the same issue, the reason we have it is not the same. And so that is actually a fascinating conversation as well, since our bodies, there's so many factors that are involved with this human body and how we react to, like, what the heck does this have to do with frequencies? It's coming to the point of why I'm doing biohackingville, right? It's like there's so many different modalities, there's so many different things that we can do to help with the human condition and the human body, that I'm just super passionate about it, and I want to have this repository of data. And then as I'm researching things, there's brilliant people all across the world. In fact, the one you're going to meet, Dr. D next week, and Dr. D is an amazing doctor, and he's helping people from a holistic perspective across the board. And you're going to see issues that he's dealing with and how he deals with them and how he helps people. And it's just fascinating. There's lots and lots of people like Dr. D, right? So my goal is to just have this repository of this great information. So you want to find out what you're going to listen to next week about from Dr. D, you're going to dig in and start seeing what he does for people. And then guess what? I'm going to be interviewing people every single week. And we're going to be coming up with these repositories of data and information that you're going to say, oh my gosh, hey, I remember hearing something about this. And we're going to have the information cataloged within our community, so you can go back and find it. And then I want to be a repository of these amazing resources across the globe for people. Right? If there's an amazing solution is healing people or curing people, I'm not going to say healing, right? Because you can't say, God heals people, humans don't. But if there's remedies that are helping people, then I want at least people to understand it, right, and know about it. And guess what? If you need to go down to Mexico and get some treatments, there's great ways to do it. There's safe ways to do it. And there's people that have set up infrastructures to get you there, right? And to do it in a very comfortable manner, in a very safe manner, in a very cost-effective manner, to where you can go get help. And so that's what I'm just, can you tell? I'm just super passionate about that, because I want to just give people hope, right? As you're going through some of these major health issues, hope is a really big issue and a big problem, because you can really quickly lose hope. And you can also just really quickly start going downhill. But man, you learn the power of this incredible mind that God gave us. And it's super, super exciting and fascinating. I had so much more to talk about with frequencies. And I got off onto this tangent with the big C word, so I apologize for that. But we are going to have a great conversation this coming week with a holistic practitioner, and we're going to dig into the modalities that he's helping people with. And if you have questions related to, like last week we talked about red light therapy, and this week we talked a lot about frequencies, and we're super excited about some of the technology that my organization is putting together, because we're combining the power of these frequency devices. Looking for my little red light therapy wand. My wand is super cool. So we have these wands that have red light therapy on them, and then guess what? We're combining the power of these frequency patches and frequency solutions with the power of red light. So you imagine you get all the benefits of the frequencies and how it's helping people, and then you combine that with the power of red light and how it's helping people. When we talked about last week with the red light goes into the mitochondrial process and starts working on literally within your cells and helps the ATP production within your cells. And so your body starts working from the inside out and starts helping. So you combine the frequencies with the red light, and guess what? People are seeing some really dramatic improvements in a lot of the areas of their health. So we're digging into those. We're developing a mat, a frequency, a red light therapy mat that is 6 feet tall. And so it's awesome. It's overall body, but then we combine the power of those frequencies. So you add the frequency to the mat, and then you're getting the frequency solution and the red light therapy solution, boom, all in one. And so that's super fun, super passionate about that and helping people. But then, geez, just Biohackingville, right? Let's make sure people understand biohackingville.com will be going live very, very soon. Within the probably, but in January we'll have the whole system up and running in full production. We do have a newsletter, so go sign up to the newsletter. It's newsletter.biohackingville.com, and you'll be on the mailing list to make sure that you're one of the first people in to the community. And then I'm doing a lot of research on all these modalities and systems, and there's lots of amazing people like in the biohacking world, right? There's lots of experts who've been doing things forever. You look at breathing techniques, there's Wim Hof, right? And you do all the research on what Wim Hof has done. We're going to build these repositories of information. You're like, hey, I remember researching something about these breathing techniques and this gentleman named Wim Hof. What does that mean? You're going to be able to go in and look and see it, and you're going to see a lot of the research that they've done, and you'll start be able to interact with it and ask questions related to it, saying like, how do I do it, right? I've never done these breathing techniques. How would I do it? And guess what? It's going to come back and give you, examples of things that you can do. And so we're going to do that across the board with all of the biohacking abilities and all these. You want to do nutrition, right? You're interested in intermittent fasting. What's the way that I should intermittent fast? I think it's a super important part of the equation, because we're all different and individual. And I think that's where I got into this this conversation was that I think is just super important, is we are all individual. I have a couple of minutes left, so I'm going to be very, very short on this. But since we are an individual, the solutions that are going to work for you and the one solution that's going to work for your friend are going to be different. And so you just can't rely upon everybody's opinion about, have you tried this new solution that's going to cure X, right? Because the reason that person has it and what actual problem they do have is different. So everybody's body is different, our genetics are different, and so the way that we need to start looking at our own bodies and being in charge of our own health. So that's what I'm super excited about, is get you to understand that. And then you can start navigating these health issues on your own, and you can become your own health advocate. And when you're your own health advocate, you start researching these right areas, you find your areas of truth, and you can really make a dramatic improvement on your health. But then maybe the reason why you're on this earth is to help someone else. Right. So maybe it's your mom, maybe it's your brother, maybe it's your friend. Right. And maybe they're not going to do the research themselves. So maybe maybe you have that desire and you're going to go do some research for them. So that's what I just want to be, this network of people who just are passionate and want to help people. And let's make the world a better place. Right. So that's why we built Biohackingville, right? Because we believe that you need to believe, right? And then you biohack, and then you become, right? That's what's super important about what we do. So go sign up to the newsletter.biohackingville.com, and then, believe, biohack, become. Remember, if you have air in your lungs today, God has a plan for your life. Believe, biohack, become.
Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Join the community and get the show notes at biohackingville.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at Biohackingville. Until next time, believe, biohack, become.